Good evening. I'm going to call the Patuit Fire District Prudential Committee to order on October 30th, 2023. We'll do a roll call. Mark?
Here.
Seth?
Present.
Ray?
Here.
Charlie?
Present.
Thank you. Is there any public comment?
I do not see anything.
So we can do the Pledge of Allegiance.
The United States of America, and to the republic on which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We need to, has everybody looked at the minutes of September 6th, October 4th? August 28th.
Those are the ones we didn't approve last time, right?
Right.
Yes, I would. Yes.
Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved. Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Ray, you're up.
Thank you. The first quarter is now in the books. And as you know, the target for the first quarter is 25%. And overall revenue was 27% of that target, while expenditures, taking out the one-time expenses that we have in the first quarter for insurance and retirement contribution, is running below 20% of target. So good on the top and good on the bottom. Taking a little more look at revenue, tax collections were down just slightly, 24% versus 25%. But the refunds that I believe I mentioned before, or so-called refunds, and I'll come back and talk about that in a minute, reduced our revenue in the first quarter by approximately $40,000. Water rates were on target, in fact, a little bit above. Overall water department was running at about 29%. Fire department with ambulance, very strong collections in the first quarter, running, as you see, at 35%. And then in the other case, the interest that we have been earning on our CDs has generated $17,000 of that $22,000 in the first quarter. So again, overall revenue very strong, but with a caution. The water pumpage for that first quarter is down 31% from last year, and actually down 18% from fiscal 22, was the last low year of water revenue. So unless something dramatically changes, I think we're in for a low earnings from the water department through the end of the year.
Ray, can you explain that a little more? You said the pumping rates are down, but the revenue is up.
The revenue reflects collections. Pumpage is the water they pump. That revenue will not be billed until January. The first quarter reflects collections for water pumped through June. It also reflects antenna and solar. So you've always got a lag between the pumpage, the activity, and the revenue, which is based on collections.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. And can you tell us the number again of the pumpage so far this fiscal year?
I do have the exact number, I don't have it in front of me. I can drop down my screen. I think my memory serves me, it was 70 million gallons through the end of September. And that compares with roughly 86 million gallons in fiscal 22 and somewhere north of 100 million in fiscal 23. So we're down 31% from fiscal 23 and 18% down from fiscal 22. And unless something dramatically changes, and obviously based on today's weather, and the last couple of days, we're not going to see a very substantial change in that pumpage rate through the end of December, which then gets billed in January. So I'm anticipating low collections in January through June for the water department. One other thing that helped in the first quarter was there was a run up in the unpaid water rates. Their accounts receivable built up through the end of June. And now that is going down. And so there's probably $20,000 or $30,000 of that revenue in the first quarter that is related to collection of prior year's receivables. Again, revenue based on actual cash collected. Does that answer the pumpage question?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Looking at the expenditure side, there's really not a lot to say other than we're on budget, we're on target, except for those items that were one-time payments in the first quarter, which were completed on target, on budget. I did want to go back to the refunds. We've talked about refunds, I don't know how many times over the past couple of years, and I pursued it this year with the town treasurer. As far as I can determine, and I pretty much got him to admit the same, well, not specifically. These aren't refunds. These are reallocations of initial cash applications. Let me explain the process. When someone pays their tax bill, that bill is allocated between number one, the district, number two, the town, and number three, the Community Preservation Act. So each payment is broken down into three parts. If you will, the ledger at the town, which is basically a spreadsheet that they use to maintain that. Then twice a year, they run the Munis system. And that recalculates that application. And this results in a refund, what they call a refund, which is really money owed by the district that was credited to us, I'm going to say, quotes, mistakenly in the initial cash application. I won't say I confronted, I commented to Sean O'Brien, the town treasurer. I said, Sean, this consistent, and it is here, the district owes the town money. And every district owes the town money. Many, much more than we. I said that this really represents a systemic weakness in our initial application. It happens so often, so repeatedly, there has to be something going wrong. Supposedly, Munis and the town ledger are based on the same input. What's going wrong? If anything, you would think the town would be motivated to underallocate to the district and take more money themselves. But it seems to go the other way. As far as I got with Sean, him explaining what happened, but really not admitting that it reflected any weakness. And at that point, COVID and year-end work caught up with me, and I dropped it. I don't think I was going to get any farther than that. But I don't think it's a refund. I think it's a correction of the initial application. But it's so consistent that it, to me, reflects some allocation problem at the town. And that's beyond us to fix.
Have you talked to Mark Milne?
Sorry?
Have you talked to Mark Milne, the finance director?
No, I didn't take it to Mark. I said I took it to Sean, tried to get as far with Sean as I could. Maybe that's the next logical step. I didn't want to, in essence, go over Sean's head. I think what I would, if I was going to do that, I would say to Sean, why don't you and I have a chat with Mark about this problem?
That sounds good.
So I'll try that.
Because it was pretty significant, right? I remember like $61,000.
Yeah, I think it's 61,000, not 40. You're right, it's $61,000 this quarter. But believe me, I spoke with other district treasurers, and their numbers are bigger. And they weren't all that interested in participating in the discussion.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Which I thought was strange.
Yeah. And when does this happen? Is this on a quarterly basis or is it on an annual basis?
Semi-annually. It will be done in December and June, and we will get the bill in July, in January and July.
Okay.
Every year.
You know, now how could they be paying us more than we're owed and aren't be a surprise to us? You know what I mean? Wouldn't we have it? So we take the word of the collector of the town, and they say, okay, well, here's the money we collected for you. It's this much. And then we base our whole financial picture bit on that number. And then they come back and say, sorry, we gave you too much money.
Right.
Don't we have a means of accounting for how much money we should be collecting based on our?
Sean, excuse me, Seth, I didn't go there.
But we would know how much money we're due.
If the auditors get involved, since the auditors have to rely on the town, this could constitute a material weakness in our system, but it's not our system.
Right, it's their system. But
It's their system.
like that we would know, you would imagine that we could create or would be able to discern what the number of tax dollars that we're going to receive in a given year would be based on what our rate
They
is.
say you owe us 61,000, and we would say, according to our calculations.
Right, or we could say at the beginning of when this money is made available to us, it isn't on a quarterly, it's as the collections come in, but it comes in a quarterly basis, or we could say, oh, that seems like too much.
The payments come in almost on a weekly and sometimes 2 times a week basis.
Right, so we don't necessarily, it wouldn't be something we could keep track of in a running tally and say, because then if everybody pays at different schedules, so it wouldn't be like, oh, at this time of the year, we should have already received this much. It's just, it's interesting.
No, all I can go on is what they give us.
I do that.
Right,
We have no independent means of verifying when the town collector
right.
sends
So
us,
with the money, then they say, we gave you 2 weeks.
here's the money. We have no alternative to verify that.
Right,
The town does when they run the Munis system, which is I think a state-based system.
So was this a problem, all along remember when we were having all the problems with the tax collector's office? And then they got new people down there and cleaned it out, or is this something new?
Oh, this has been going on as long as I have been here.
Well, maybe the problem is in the tax collector's office.
If the problem is in the I'm trying to phrase this properly. The problem arises between the town collector and the munis system.
Oh, okay,
Supposedly, both are based on the same documentary input. So therefore, if you have system A and system B based on the same information generating differing results, you have a weakness somewhere in that system.
Yes,
And since that system, year in, year out, produces the same result, it would point you to a problem in that system. Or it should point you to a problem in that system. But I could not get, as I said, I couldn't get anywhere with Sean on the fact this is a internal weakness. I didn't really want to highlight this to the auditors. I mean, they do every district in the town, so they have to be aware of it. At some point, if they do what auditors do, they say you're relying on a system that's over generating revenue. I mean, theoretically, we overstate free cash.
Right, it's a whole,
Yeah.
it's a thing. Now, what would we say, for instance, now just as a hypothetical, just for my entertainment, what would happen if we didn't have the money to pay them back? Would we have to take a bond issue or issue a bond in order to pay the town back whatever money that they erroneously issued to us? And back to us?
You can construct a case, Seth, where if we took all the money in and expended it as legally we would be authorized to do, and ended up at the end of the year with no money, and they said, oh, by the way, we gave you too much money,
Right, seems so.
we would have to go to a bond issue. What it would mean is that we had understated the tax levy.
It just seems like it could lead, I mean, not that it will, but it seems like an inconsistency that should be.
it seems like it's a real problem.
Dealt with, I mean, because I don't know about West Barnstable or whatever, do they have that same problem?
Yeah, all districts do. I talked with all the other three district treasurers. I have it again. I have it in a very, very small way in West Barnstable. Has a very large refund.
Oh, I bet.
West Barnstable, the same. Hyannis has a large one. Hyannis had no interest at all. Was kind of interested. Both Com and West Barnstable basically said, well, tell us if you find out anything.
Right.
I thought, curious.
Well, Ray, at the least, the next time this comes up, if you will raise it to us before we make any payment back to the town, because, you know, possession being 9/10 of the law, I would assume that they'd be coming to us to try to explain why this should be happening and why it's okay for it to be happening, rather than us trying to get an explanation when they already have the cash in hand.
Good idea.
I think I would get ahead of that. To avoid, I guess I'm being a pacifist. I don't want to create too much antagonism at the town, because they do give us good service in other areas.
I agree. I think trying to resolve it ahead of time is.
Yeah, I think thinking.
If it's not resolved, that will focus people's attention.
Yeah, then I think we have a position. I think I have to take what Fran said, what you're saying, and Seth, and say, go back to Sean and say, I think my commissioners just aren't satisfied. I think we need to carry this a little farther, and I think maybe we ought to sit down with Mark and get his perspective on it as well.
That sounds like a great approach.
Sounds a good idea.
The other statement that I sent out to you, Fran had asked me to look at what the profitability, but we could call it net revenue, or the net contribution to the district was for the water department over the past few years. And I looked at 7 years, which was before the 21 increase and 3 afterwards. And I started off with and I used the ledger as my basis. I took all of the revenue that the water department generates, water rates, meter fees, antenna, solar, water liens, the other revenue that they had. I included everything. I then took their departmental budgets or actual results, their salaries, their operating, and their contribution to the stabilization. Those being, if you will, direct expenses. And then I added to that the allocated expenses, as is mentioned in the legislation that created the water department. There's a phrase in there that says that the water rates should cover direct departmental expenses and those expenses that should be allocated from the district. And I believe I've identified these expenses allocated from the district, that the district records, that really are attributable to water department activity. The first one is benefits. We pay the medical expense, the payroll tax. We pay the OPEB retirement. We pay their salaried retirement. And so I took all those expenses. And the reason I've done it in 2 steps is because in the annual report, there is a section that we produce each year that identifies employee benefits by individual. And so I added those up for the department, for all departments, frankly, and compared that to what the total expenditures were for all benefits, and found out there were some differences. So I allocated not only the specific for the annual report, but the balance that is actually money paid for benefits. I allocated that on salaries, which is really the driver or the thing that generates those benefits. The next one I did was debt, and I actually looked at what the debt was, if it was attributable to something that the water department had borrowed, or we had borrowed for the water department. That expense was then identified here as a water department expense. Now we step away from things that aren't really direct, but are really are attributable to the department. Insurance. There's a number of ways you could do it. I chose fixed assets and revenue. I took the land component out, which is heavily weighted towards the water department, to get those operating assets and revenue, which to me were sources of risk that we cover with insurance. And so I allocated based on the average of those 2 components. And in administration, basically the finance department, we basically pay bills, pay payroll. We do some other things, but those things are the major drivers. So I took manpower and expenditure to allocate the administration after I pulled out the payroll tax and the insurance. Then finally, there was some more expenses from the district, Freedom Hall, which the water department uses, the street lights, which we all use, and allocated that. It's a very small amount, wouldn't change the result if I didn't allocate it or not. So you can see for the first 4 years, the water department was heavily reliant, almost $1 million each year, on the taxpayers to pay for the water department, pay for the water rates. Things 21, and in 21 we had a increase. 22, we had a loss, and that was a down year in terms of pumpage. And then last year we had a big year in pumpage and they generated a profit. This year, I'm estimating that they will generate a loss equal to, similar to what happened in fiscal 22. So when you look at the last 4 years, it's been at least a break even, probably a titch on the negative side in terms of the water department's need for tax revenue to supplement their operations. That setting, I think, I understand from Fran that they are planning a price increase next year effective in June.
Yeah. So I asked for this from Ray because I have gone to their meetings, and once they got past their budget amount that they had, you know, they didn't see any of the rest of this, and they just thought that the $400,000 that was remaining was theirs to spend for whatever. Part of that being the plan to institute sustainable practices, and which is ways to keep, you know, from not polluting your water. And one of them is to upgrade septic systems. And they were planning on using any of that $400,000 to upgrade private septic systems. So I'd explained to them a couple of times that they didn't have as much money as they thought they did. And so finally I asked Ray to do this. So, and I went to their last meeting and, you know, gave this to them and explained it and asked if there were questions, and there were no questions, and
They just go right past it.
I guess, I don't, you know, but I did, what Ray provided didn't have anything for employee benefits for 2023. And I used Lisa's suggestion, 4% of 22. So that leaves them with $76,636, which they're supposed to apply according to the bylaws to lower the rates. The new plan is because it's important for everybody to have clean water and accessible water per the UN, is they're going to lower the rates. For the first 20,000, it's going to be $40 instead of $80. And they're going to make up for this for the $90,000 that they estimate they'll lose by charging a 15% surcharge on the high-end users.
Which they had talked about prior, but had learned was illegal to do zero. They had to collect a rate.
Yeah, well,
For
yeah,
the
they
first
finally
50%.
convinced somebody finally convinced them I couldn't charge zero.
Does it, like, it can't be zero, but presumably it can't be a penny either. Is there?
I don't think is there a fair market value aspect to it?
No. So, and the bylaws, you know, say that they're supposed to return this to the ratepayers.
So now,
Yes.
any attempt to use money or expend funds to do that with the IA systems or whatever the plan
Yeah.
was, would have to be a warrant article anyway. They can't expend that money just on their own. Like,
Yes,
well-
I would think so.
right? They would have to you have to go to this meeting,
They were discussing getting a,
and it would have to change the legislation.
yeah,
Anything
and changing
Yeah.
the enabling legislation to allow them to do that.
without going to a district meeting, that would be impossible.
No, they'd have to go to a go to the district meeting and take it up to the legislature and then bring it back.
But I mean, once, if they were to do all of that, then it would be, now they couldn't do it at a current, they couldn't call a special district meeting and say, this is our grand plan to pay for these things.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't be a legal expenditure. Or would it be if they did it that way?
No, it would have to be, there would have to be a vote on expending the money, a specific amount of money.
Right, would they have to change the enabling legislation to do that?
Yeah, they'd have to change the enabling legislation to say that they could, do improvements on, private.
Right. it'd be
Private
private,
web,
public thing.
public thing, you know, without charging them any money, you know, paying for doing the improvements.
Yeah.
And now on the flip side, could we decide to do that? We couldn't do that either. Say we had it in our heads to go and get a bond and then build septic systems for, not that I'm one of the advocates, but for
Private
whomever.
property.
Would that be outside of the legislation as well for? I just find it very much.
Yeah,
we
no,
should
I
do
don't.
it.
But
It's not entirely clear to me that we couldn't do that. It seems like you probably could not. If
Right.
Yeah.
if you're upgrading someone's private septic tank system that would increase their property value presumably.
Right, there's that.
Then
issue.
you would
Yeah.
not be allowed to do that.
And, yeah, that's what,
I mean, maybe you could give out grants. You know, that's a possibility.
would it all fall outside of the fire, water and finance purview of the district? to
See,
begin with?
that's the great question, because you may not be able to tweak someone's private septic tank, but wouldn't you be able to say, just, you know, downstream of their property, put in some kind of, you know, I don't know what it would be, but some kind of system that would
Well, I think
Right.
this,
protect the well.
I think the sustainable practices is an attempt to, so that we wouldn't have to at any time have to do a water filtration plant.
Which is,
But I asked if anybody on Cape Cod was doing that, sustainable, and the answer to that is no. And, they're doing, Mr. Horsley's company is doing one someplace off Cape, sustainable practices.
Just a small well to draw from to, not to make a pun, but our funds to
Yeah.
take on something of that nature when it's
So,
all,
you know, I mean, there's,
you know what I mean?
you know,
you mean the big filtration, it's one thing
Oh,
about.
either
What
way.
they're proposing is you can do it
Right.
piecemeal, as opposed to we need a $10 million or $20 million.
Right.
Although I thought the big system was primarily with regard to PFAS or.
Yeah, forever chemicals and.
Yeah,
but the state keeps lowering those that are acceptable. In Barnstable Village, because of the airport stuff, has to have one, and it came in at $16 million.
Does that, I know, and does that affect nitrogen levels in the water? See, this is why I'm not a water commissioner. Like, I see what you're saying, or does that plant do both? Is it gonna remove these forever chemicals and then help with the nitrogen load? It's in, because that's what the septic thing is based on, not, you can have a septic system, an IA septic system that's still gonna contribute the PFAS, phos, whatever, into the aquifer.
say, I do not think it would aid in the forever chemical issue, because if you upgrade someone's septic system, the input is only their septic.
Right.
Outflows, whereas the PFAS is the entire, water table.
Right, and it comes from, but
Comes
it
from
comes from everybody
miles
all
away.
at once, but it could
Exactly.
be. It comes from each individual septic system and then what they call those, the sites where you put it's a line. I don't know, I guess it's beyond the scope.
A lot.
It is, those guys are the experts on it, obviously, we just need to know enough about it to make sense of it.
Fran, just a curiosity, are those wells that they want to fix, are they compliant with Title V?
I believe they are. The water department's view is that Title V septic systems are not effective at all.
That's everybody's view.
Yeah,
Right, that's now it's the state's
Hmm.
point of view,
Yeah.
right?
Well, yeah, but, but they're not, I mean, there are all kinds of upgraded systems all over the country that are working just fine. But Massachusetts hasn't allowed them. And they, just keep on telling you have to do Title V, which may be fine, off of the Cape, but it's obviously not working here. And then we have the suit, from Conservation Foundation, yeah, so. But anyway, so that, the reason I did this was so that I could get the in black and white, that they don't have as much funding as they think they do.
And the last time that we discussed this, it was my opinion, and it's my thought that. And I don't know, we should have a legal opinion on it in a way that. It's all one system here, you know what I mean? This money is all, as we had it broken down, it's all one body.
Yes,
And it's not for one, nothing is enterprise funded independent of itself, and then there's nothing to be expended by. It's one thing to go and get an article in order to do a thing within your purview, and then it's another thing altogether to say, well, we view ourselves as enterprise funded, we see what we've got, we think we have, and let us imagine how we should expend that money,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
These statements are not legal, and what accountants would call pro forma. They're just for illustration purposes.
Right, and that's what I
So
mean.
you're-
Yeah, you know what I mean, right? We talked about this before.
I do, I mean, you put it very, very well.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the thing, if it comes to that, I mean, if it's gonna be a change to the enabling legislation, if that's where we're headed, if that has any steam, then I still think that there's a question about. You know, I guess at that point it would be different because they could just have a warrant that would say, and then we're out of it anyway, it doesn't really matter, and they can expend however, we'd have to borrow the money to do it.
Right, but your point is, if in fact these numbers were different and they were making a quote profit close quote,
It's not,
that profit would not be then theirs to
right, to expend.
expend. It would have to be approved by the voters.
Yeah, absolutely, and that may be well what they're planning, but it's still just, I think it's I don't think it's a great way I don't think it's an accurate way of looking to say, we are profiting, let us expend this money, or find ways to expend this money, when we have plenty of debt and other things, and whatever that we have that's coming up that needs to be paid, that could be paid, and so on. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
One question, Ray, about your assessments or your allocations. Just briefly again, how did you allocate the insurance?
It did an average of the non-land fixed assets, which is a figure that you folks don't normally see. But we do maintain a ledger of capital assets. All expenditures over $10,000 that would benefit more than 2-year period are recorded on a ledger. We don't normally report that to the state, but it is used for the auditor's preparation of the GAAP, generally accepted accounting principle, audit statements. So I took the average of that and revenue. I did the allocation of revenue between water department and fire department, and the assets between water department and fire department. And the average of that, those combinations, is what I use to allocate the insurance premium. And the basis of that is that you're covering risk, and risk is either asset or activity related. So those were the 2 things that I could grab readily to use to allocate that insurance number.
Okay, thanks. So, thank you.
What's that?
Fran, it was just 2 other things I wanted to mention. I mentioned in the email, and I just wanted to remind you, I was 2 days late for a debt payment. I missed the reminder and the schedule. I'm developing a payment schedule that take into account all these one-time payments. And the second point is, in the annual district meeting, we over appropriated free cash by $37,000. It was created by transposition in Article 14, thinking raise and appropriate was free cash and vice versa. The clerk caught that, but unfortunately it was after the meeting, and so we've allocated more. And the remedy for that, since we now have an additional $764,000 of free cash that was just certified by the state, we'll have to have at the next district meeting, we'll have to allocate that $37,000, and it will simply hold up the transfer of money for the water department stabilization. But we do have to do that at the next special or annual district meeting.
Ray,
Okay,
Ray, on the first topic, the late payment, are there any financial consequences as a result of that?
Um, so far, there has been none of the bondholders nor the bank administrator has mentioned it all. I calculated that if they did, it would be, according to the rules, it would be something like $75.
Okay,
Ray was sick.
yeah, I know.
I have a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if there were consequences, but, all right, thank you. We appreciate the transparency.
How did they get paid? Do you have to physically pay every debt obligation? By writing a check or doing electronic transfer?
Electronic transfer.
That sounds crazy, but is there such a thing as auto pay for, for these things? Do you know?
Well, these are semi-annual payments. I don't think you could do an auto pay.
Like
You could also just as easily set it up a couple of weeks in advance with the bank.
Right,
It's different every time.
oh, so they don't fall on at the same time?
No, they're
Just a random-
they're
I know, just a strange,
semi-annual on erratic dates.
how I remember to pay my bills, is that I don't. They all just get paid.
You know, if I could set up auto pay, it's something that when you have a calendar, you know that's coming up, and you simply organize it with the bank in advance. It's very, the remedy is rather simple.
Thanks, Ray. So the Zoom meeting, the cards have been mailed? Lisa?
They go out November 1
Okay. And.
And
for the
just-
school meeting
for the
on
audience.
November 9th.
Yes, we're talking about we decided to send cards advertising the Katuitt School Zoom meeting on November 9th, sending out cards to all the voters in the village.
All residents
All
and
residents.
also letting them know they can review what's already been covered.
Right,
And we provide them with a web page link to review what has already been asked and answered many times.
So,
Well, now we talked about it a little bit last time, but have we decided on a structure for that meeting other than the format, which is Zoom, obviously?
I think I had volunteered to do a PowerPoint.
Right, you were gonna do your presentation.
We had talked a little bit about what those topics were gonna be.
Right.
What the process is, what the status is. Giving the public kind of our tentative preliminary views as to what we will recommend.
Right.
Subject to additional input.
And then we're gonna be straight up public comment for the remainder,
That's what I think.
public
we
questions.
talked
the
about.
questions.
Yeah, we're looking for reaction to our tentative opinion and input on
Right,
possibly.
right, that's what we talked about last time.
Yeah.
I just wanted to.
I have a problem, discussing our tentative opinion. Because I think that might keep people from, asking questions or making statements if they think we've already come to.
Well, I don't know that we have come to, we're serious when we say this is our tentative, that this is the way we're leaning. We had talked about, people were kind of looking to say, well, why haven't you moved it further along of investigating this particular use for the school?
Right.
And kind of the overarching basis for that. It kind of sets the stage for who is responsible for.
Right, we're doing the heavy lifting of the thing, if there is a thing.
If there is a thing.
I don't think it's any secret that, what our personal opinions are on the topic, based on anybody who's observed our meetings.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know, one way or the other, it's
By personal, we don't mean
well,
kind of uninformed.
no.
This is what we're thinking based on everything we review,
Professional impression.
professional impressions. So,
But anyway, that is beside the point, I guess, but, yeah, that is all, I think that sounds good.
okay.
I mean, we can demur at the time.
Okay. That's, so, the other thing I wanted to bring up is that we don't have, a procurement officer in the district. So, we need to, I'm not even sure what we need to do, if we need to do an RFP. For, whatever we decide, or, an RFC, which is send a bid out for, architects. And then I've read most of the, RFP that the town did for the Marcus Mill School.
It was expensive, or, well,
Yes.
Yes.
the whole thing.
Yeah, the whole thing was,
And we talked about this a little bit before, because I don't understand the, what do they call them, the Bushka dolls? It's like never ending. How do you get to the point where you have to issue an RFP for an RFP after an RFP? Who do you hire to do this for you? That
Thank
you have to write an RFP to get that guy. How do you begin if it's always you have to have an RFP? You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's under a certain amount. So can we find someone under 15,000? Is that what it is?
I don't,
Or
I don't,
5,000?
actually, I think what we have to do is we have to hire architects. I
Right.
think. And then they would do the RFP, I think,
So we would retain them
yes.
for less than the amount. Ray, what is the amount that would trigger us having to take it out through a proper bidding process?
It's 50 for an RFP. It's 10 for, triple quotes. So anything under 10, you can simply source. If it goes over 10, you are, supposed to have 3 quotes. And over 50 is the RFP, the formal
I have
process.
one thought.
Was that 50?
Yes,
50, yes, 50.
So we
What
could
did,
easily-
Fran, did you ever find out, or I never got them to tell me what they paid for that pack?
I haven't seen a final figure. I just know that the bid was $750 for the demo.
No, I'm saying for the package that went out to generate, the one went out for the RFP.
The town of Barnstable has a procurement officer that does that.
I know I asked her. I didn't get an answer.
There was an architectural firm that did that request for proposal, I believe, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna call them. It just kind of slipped my mind. I was just gonna call them and ask them what was the bill to prepare that Marston Mills. I mean, the firm is listed on that document.
So Ray will have to be the part-time procurement officer from this point forward.
No,
No,
It sounds like we need to get Mark Boudreaux's, well, weigh in on this as well.
Right, just to see, because I think that we can probably retain someone to get the ball rolling without having to do any of the complicated stuff. We can either do the triple quote thing in order to.
no,
just
no, no.
Meaning to get the person in place who's gonna do the RFP for demolition, construction, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We don't think that can be done just to retain them and so that they can tell us what it is we need to do next.
I don't know, when we looked at architects for the space needs, we had to do a request for quote.
Right.
Which 20 people applied to.
Right. And what was the dollar value of that? Like, what did it end up coming back as?
I think about $10,000 or $12,000.
Right, but now by what Ray just said, he said under 50,000, you don't have to go to that level of
Well, he said anything.
procurement.
Fran, wasn't that, we had to appropriate more money for that they ran over?
Yeah, they did. We had to appropriate an extra $20,000, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was for the architects themselves.
That was when they were doing the actual design things.
Yes,
Oh.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is to get to that point where they would be. I guess I see where I have my own.
But why don't we just call the guys that did Marston Mills and say, what would it cost for you to do the same thing for another school?
Yeah,
okay,
That'd be
Yeah.
great.
And then they'll craft the RFP,
yes,
which would cost us more than $50,000, you think?
I
See
don't-
what I'm saying, like
Yeah.
who writes the RFP to then
No,
those
I mean,
guys write
basically-
the RFP, do you see what I'm saying?
nesting dolls.
Yeah, that's what I
we
think.
would hire the architects basically to write the RFP.
But and if Ray gets the answer that it costs $10,000
Right.
just to do, then we can just do it.
Do that.
But
I'm
let's-
sorry to
but
belabor
Ray-
the point, but it's,
Yeah, but
I just find
It
it
depends on the number.
so strange.
It is a little.
You have to begin somewhere, so it's like,
Really?
where's the, where's the first step?
Just to be-
You can't just have an RFP
Where's the
for an
last step?
RFP, for an RFP, for an RFP. Anyway, that's well besides the point. Can I ask about the deed from where we stand?
You may, although it pains me greatly, I talked to Mark Woodrow, or rather he left me a message about this afternoon. He has been it is, just so our audience is aware, we did the legal work, preparing the deed, et cetera. Submitted it to the town of Barnstable Legal Department, and have been hounding them ever since via our counsel to no avail. He is now on vacation. I think he was on vacation last week. He should be returning.
Right.
He didn't return any of.
That was Mark Boudreau or the town attorney? that he
The
was
town
dealing with?
attorney was on vacation and he did not return any of Mark's
Oh, Charlie.
treaties today.
Charlie Glass.
So I think it's time, but I spoke previously to Lee Clyburn, who was as interested and we were. To get this moving along, but that was now at least a couple of months ago. I will talk to him
Right.
again.
Yeah, so, yeah, I sent Mark an email also, but things go into the legal department of the town, like some sort of sinkhole.
It'd be good to have something by November 9th.
We'll put it in with our refunds on our misappropriated money.
Yeah.
There's, he says,
There's
we're
that
receiving
too.
such great service. Yeah, there's two strikes.
Okay, so, we have the new signs, the sandwich sign,
Okay.
they're in the closet over there. And, I went out and was able to get, well, no, I wasn't able to get, I was able to get a quote to replace our current company that's doing our landscaping and snow plowing. And, I called the gentleman that does, the water department, and he never called me back.
He
And,
didn't. He didn't?
no, he didn't.
Is that Wellington?
Yes.
Yeah. And, but that counts. And, I called, Roger Scudder Services. So he would charge us $45 for mowing. He would charge us $200 for each, time he did snow removal. The fall cleanup would be $405. And the spring cleanup with dethatching the lawn. And, I have to make sure that includes mulch. Would be $325. No, I think that's
That's much cheaper. than
much
what-
cheaper than what we're getting.
It is. I can look up the numbers specifically, but
So, and I forgot to bring my copies of the current contract we have with,
I can pull it up, but
Hourly
then
and-
everyone else would go away, so.
But. Now, when are they stopping? When are they stopping our lawn service? Did you say February?
I emailed you the information, I think. I'm sorry, I think it. I think it might be that, there's some sort of final step that they do. Sorry, don't have it off the top of my head now.
So, all right, because I couldn't find my copy of the contract. It's,
Well, I have it, but I will supply it to you.
so. maybe we can negotiate our way out of that. You're good at that.
Well, we've been paying 10 equal installments on it, so I think we have one more. So we've already paid
Oh, okay. So,
through whatever that end date is, except for one more payment of either 5/10 or 7/10. I can't quite remember what that is, so it's kind of a done deal.
oh, okay, so, you know, I could tell, well, I think they've done the. I haven't been back to see if they've done the fall cleanup. I'll have to go to the back of the building. And, so I'll accept a motion to,
So moved.
engage Roger Scudder Services for our landscaping services and snow plowing at Freedom Hall.
So moved again.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Terrific. Oh, let's see. And then, is there any public comment?
I see no chats. There was something, it's disappeared. Hold on, let me just look here. I'm now not seeing, oh, there's a hand raised. Graham Silman is raising his hand. Graham, I'm asking you to unmute. There you go.
Just two things for the Prudential Committee. One is at this Prudential Committee meeting and also at the last public meeting about the school, there was bandied about some idea of we just change the enabling legislation. If at the meeting for the next public meeting about the school, it would be helpful to get an explanation of what that means. And the context for that is this year, it's been a big item in the news, and it was last year as well, that our legislator has passed almost no bills. So is it a realistic thing for us to do? How many times have we gone to the legislature in the history of the district? And how many times have we had changes to our legislation? And how long does that process take? Just want to make a point that that's something that people might wonder about, because we bandy about as we just go do that. The second thing is, as you're talking about construction or demolition related projects, and we do not have any full-time procurement or management staff for that, we could look into hiring a clerk of the works. The town of Mashpee has done this a number of times. There's actually a Mashpee resident who's a former member of the Cape Cod Commission named Ernie Virgilio, who'd be someone you would hire or could even answer questions for you about what that means and how that might help or might not be useful. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
But can I just say, us have not wanted to do any changing of the legislation
No,
and realize what a cumbersome and unlikely process it is. We were at this meeting anyway, talking about the water commissioners and their maybe attempts.
Yeah.
currently, the only interest in changing the enabling legislation is a historical, society has come in front of us. And they would like to, insert into the,
Right, $15,000.
$15,000 a year.
Which we opposed.
To support the historical society, which we opposed. And, I'm pretty sure that's gonna come back, but I think that's a different, completely different kettle of fish than from the library, which, you know, more people, there are 300 members of the Historical Society, and the library circulates something like over 100,000 books a year, if not more. So, and all the programs that they have, you know, year round. So I think it's two different projects.
We have two more hands raised.
Okay.
Patty Daly.
Yes, hi, thank you and good evening. So the Katuitt Fire District's legislation has been amended twice.
Right.
And there was a meeting with Kip Diggs at the Katuitt Water Department meeting recently, because as we know, they're interested in amending as well. And Representative Diggs did state that, you know, so long as there is a vote of support from the residents of Katuitt, of the fire district, that he would be more than happy to file legislation to make an amendment. And I think it would be premature to just discount that effort before it even got started. So thank you for your time.
There was a vote for the Historical Society. They gained 80 votes in the support. He took those 80 votes up to the legislature. And they said, no, it wasn't a representative, wasn't enough votes, wasn't a representative sample of the district. So you need to get a lot more people than 80 for them to start working on changing the legislation.
I appreciate that respectfully. I think you might get more votes on this issue. Thank you.
We have another hand raised by Joanne Massaro.
Yes. Hi, thank you. My question I had put in the chat that I guess it disappeared from your view. This is for Ray. The misallocation that we've been seeing for the past number of years, is there a kind of a range of the percentage, or is it pretty consistent? What percentage has it been off, is my question.
Off from what? I don't understand the question.
Well, you said that every year, or there's been on the semi-annual basis, there has been a mistake that this town, we have thought we got more, and then the town says we owe it to them because they run another, I don't know, another system, and it says you're off and you have to pay. And so I was just wondering if you could see a pattern to it. Is there a percentage off? Is it 10% off or 20% off? Is it vary from one end to the other? There's no rhyme or reason to it.
There does not appear to be any percentage that I could relate in either of my two districts.
Okay. And the other question I have, or at least maybe it's a comment, when you were talking about the revenues that may, for the water revenues might go down or be consistently going down. I'm wondering if it's some of it, not just because of the rain, may have to do with more people getting private wells for irrigation, and especially with the anticipation of your increasing rates. Have you factored in how that might impact with revenues in the future?
I have no information regarding that. That would have to be something that the water department, I believe, would develop. I'm dealing with more global numbers.
Right,
And
okay.
there seems to be a clear correlation in the revenue so far, at least, between pumpage and water collections, if you will. But I think you make a good point.
Yeah, I mean, and if that becomes a trend based on certain things that either are predictable or at least something that you can anticipate, then there's probably should be some thought about how that will impact the budget and the expenditures.
Yeah, I think
So,
you are correct.
okay, all right, that's it. Thank you very much.
I do not see any more hands
Okay.
raised.
Okay. I will, let's see, our next meeting would be 27th of November. Is that good for everybody? What's the,
What day is Thanksgiving? I know I should know this, it's before that.
yeah.
That's fine.
Fran, on that point, I asked the town assessor when he thought the tax classification meeting would happen. And he is thinking that it might be the week of the 13th. So I don't know whether you want, and usually historically, it's been delayed a week or two. So there might be an opportunity to combine meetings at that point. But of course, we won't know until probably November 13th when that meeting is going to happen.
Okay.
And by the way, November 27th is the Monday after Thanksgiving. And that of course is our next regularly scheduled meeting, but we do want to emphasize that we have the November 9th Zoom meeting relating to the Katuitt School, as well.
I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Seconded.
all those in favor? Aye. Thank you.